Hello everybody and welcome to the Film Feast's Top 20 Movies of 2014. It's finally time and I've watched most of the movies that I want to see for the year. Just a few of the films that I missed out on last year include The One I Love, Force Majeure, and Obvious Child, amongst many others. I've said it before, 2014 wasn't a great year for me in terms of going to the movies. I only saw 89 films this year, and a good fraction of those weren't all that great. But this list is comprised of the 20 movies along with 5 honorable mentions that I loved from 2014. I don't claim any definitive status for any one of these films. These are just my favorite movies of 2014, ones that I would turn around and recommend to any friend or family member. And this will be part 1 of a 2-part video. Please refer to the next video for number 10 to number 1. This video is number 20 to number 11. But first, I will list my honorable mentions. You can refer to the D box below to find my short thoughts on each film. My 2014 honorable mentions list is John Wick, Godzilla, 22 Jump Street, Alan Partridge, Alpha Papa, and Captain America: The Winter Soldier. And now for the main list! My 20th favorite film of 2014 is Dear White People. This film is a biting satire of a culture that believes in this day and age that racism is over. No. In my short and narrow experience of studying cinema, I've found that usually a satire is portrayed through the eyes of which the film is being satirical. But in this case, I think Justin Simien wanted to stick with black characters dealing with issues of race in a white culture. This is key because it allows the audience to laugh at white people, because that is what Justin Simien wants. No matter what race you are, you're supposed to feel like, hey, these white people are doing stupid white people things, and this happens actually in real life every day. And despite some minor issues that I have with the narrative, I think Dear White People is still an essential, effective satire. My pick for number 19 is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. This film is great because it took what worked about Rise of the Planet of the Apes and upped it like 100 levels. I love that this film is like 90% apes, and that it just envelops you in this new world that is being created by Caesar and his family and his friends and his enemies. In Rise, we got to see a little bit of character progression for Caesar, but it's in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes that we really do get to see Caesar come into his own as a fully formed character. We also get to learn a lot about Caesar's adversary Koba, played wonderfully by Toby Kebbell, and again, Andy Serkis comes back to give a tremendous performance as Caesar. Between this film's shocking violence and hauntingly good score by Michael Giacchino, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes tells a very human story through the eyes of apes, and I cannot wait to see what Matt Reeves brings in his next film for the Apes series. My 18th favorite film of 2014 is Blue Ruin. What's so striking to me about this film is that it's not your typical revenge thriller. The main character, Dwight, is a man who has never harmed anyone in his entire life. He's meek, never really even shot a gun. But now he finds himself seeking revenge against the man who has murdered his parents. Director Jeremy Saulnier is able to build tension in a way that not many directors are able to do nowadays. He's very in your face about it. He doesn't want to try and trick the audience with anything. It's all right there on the screen for you to see. He doesn't do a lot of tricks with the editing. His shot design is fairly simplistic, and I mean that in a good way. There's an honesty to his direction, and I like that. Blue Ruin is on Netflix Instant right now. You can check it out, and I will definitely be following Jeremy Saulnier's career with a very close eye. My number 17 pick is The Double. I really like Richard Ayoade's filmmaking. He's just incredibly energetic, has a lot of passion put into his work, and you can tell in every single frame on screen. I haven't seen The Double since May, and even back then it threw me for a bit of a loop, but I knew what I was watching was good. I knew that it had numerous homages to films like Brazil, and that stars Jesse Eisenberg and Mia Wasikowska had great on-screen chemistry. Ayoade's screen direction is on point, and his selection of music is fantastic. The dude just knows how to make a good film. And the one thing that I thought about the most after watching The Double the first time is that I want to rediscover it. I want to find new things every time I watch it. The last time I checked, The Double is also on Netflix Instant, as well as Iwati's first film, Submarine, which is also excellent. Number 16 is Edge of Tomorrow. Admittedly, I thought the first image looked silly. Tom Cruise in a big exoskeleton suit running away from a big explosion. And back then the movie was called All You Need Is Kill. I didn't like that title because I didn't know anything about the source material, and I just said, no, I'm clocking out. Also, Doug Liman was directing it. I didn't love his movies. It was a mixture of a couple of different things that just had me saying, nah, I'm just gonna skip this one. And then I watched it. Edge of Tomorrow rules. It's the mixture of a lot of great things. It's based on a Japanese graphic novel, a manga called All You Need Is Kill, which now thinking back onto it, I'm like, oh, it's based on a Japanese graphic novel? I love the title. Also, people will look at this movie and say, Tom Cruise, done. And I'm here to tell you, Tom Cruise does not play a very likable character, at least not at the beginning of the movie. He plays a bit of a coward, not your typical action hero, but he becomes your typical action hero, but in a very uncommon way. The way this film's action plays out, mixed with the cutting, kind of makes it like the perfect video game movie. And that phrase isn't uttered very often, perfect video game movie. It's because one doesn't really exist. Emily Blunt is also awesome in this movie. She uses a buster blade, something that nobody has been able to incorporate into a live action movie ever, but she uses one in this movie and it's awesome. Edge of Tomorrow is out right now on Blu-ray and I highly suggest you go check it out. On to number 15. The Guest. Director Adam Wingard and writer Simon Barrett have crafted the perfect homage to 80s films, but at the same time making something that feels perfectly modern. And I'm talking about Terminator mixed with some of the weirder elements of Fright Night, mixed with Mary Poppins? I know that's not an 80s movie, but you'll get it when you watch it. The star of the film, Dan Stevens, is the perfect badass. And I just found out that he got his big break on Downton Abbey, which is, thinking about him in that role and in The Guest, two very opposite ends of the spectrum, but all the same, he's great. The Guest also has what might be my favorite soundtrack of the year. A lot of synth-heavy tracks that would really please any fan of 80s music, but at the same time it works so well in this action-heavy film. The Guest, out right now on Blu-ray, DVD, and VOD. Go check it out right now because I genuinely think you guys would enjoy it. Moving on, my 14th favorite film of 2014 is The Rover. This is the follow-up to David Michôd's fantastic 2010 film Animal Kingdom, a movie that I love, one of my favorites of that year, also a great breakout movie for actors Jackie Weaver and Ben Mendelsohn. It also has great performances from Joel Edgerton and Guy Pearce. The Rover is basically more of the same for David Michôd, very tense sequences, but this movie is a little bit more plotted out. Guy Pearce stars as the protagonist, a man who is never actually named. He is a desperate man who is just trying to regain something that is taken from him, and the men who take it leave behind another character, played by Robert Pattinson, who does great in this movie. Guy Pearce's character basically uses Robert Pattinson's character as a means to get back what was taken from him. Guy Pearce, great actor, no need to say anything else. But with Robert Pattinson, you don't usually look to him as a credible acting talent. But in my opinion, since the Twilight series ended, he's really come into his own, and he's been doing some pretty damn good work lately. My only disappointment with The Rover is that it is less narrative and more character. And that's not a bad thing, it's just not what I was expecting going into the movie. But when you look at other post-apocalyptic movies out there, few of them tackle the same kinds of issues that The Rover does, and that's what I love about it. In my number 13 slot is Studio Ghibli's newest film, The Tale of Princess Kaguya. For Studio Ghibli, this is a huge departure from their usual material in terms of animations, but it's nonetheless stunning and gorgeous. The animation team for Princess Kaguya incorporates these beautiful watercolors and stark charcoal line work that makes it look so old, like a fable or a storybook, but it comes to life and jumps off the page in some of the best animation that I have seen all year. And Isao Takahata directs what is just a devastatingly sad story, but at the same time it feels so essential, something that I would recommend to anyone just to experience it. The Tale of Princess Kaguya completely surprised me. I thought it was going to be a much smaller story for Studio Ghibli, but it's turned into one of my favorite films from that studio. For number 12, I've chosen The Babadook. I don't really know what to say about this movie that other critics and other video bloggers have said numerous times before, but in case you haven't heard about this movie, it's an Australian movie. It's also a horror movie that feels so fresh and original. To put it simply, The Babadook is about a grieving mother and son who read this book and are eventually haunted by the creature from the book called the Babadook. I don't want to make this story sound like just another haunting because it's so much more than that. Director Jennifer Kent is incredibly talented, and her work with actors Essie Davis and Noah Weissman is perfect. Their chemistry on screen is great as mother and son, but also the way that Kent is able to craft depression in such a visual way on screen is some of the best direction I have seen all year. I love everything about the Babadook's visuals. Imagine John Carpenter and Tim Burton from 20 years ago teaming up to make a movie, and that's kind of what you get here. It's an all-around excellent film, so look for it whenever it comes out on home video. And finally, ending off this video with my number 11 pick, Fury. Out of the two films that David Ayer has had released in 2014, Sabotage and Fury, Fury is far superior of the two. I'm kind of surprised to not see this movie in more best of lists. I think it's great. It has fantastic performances from Brad Pitt, Logan Lerman, Michael Pena, Shia LaBeouf, and John Barenthal. I also think what David Ayer does with the action sequences in Fury to be excellent. They feel so oddly reminiscent of Star Wars dogfights. I don't know how that really translates to on-land tank fights, but it does, and it kind of made me weirdly giddy in the movie theater. The film is also goddamn poetic, and it's more than just how it looks at its human characters, but Fury also kind of looks at tanks to be this sort of artistry. I think David Ayer has a lot of respect for these machines, these weapons, because he actually pulled an old World War II tank out of a museum and made it fit for an action sequence. And when it finally shows up on screen, it's a huge moment. I'd love to take the time and explain more about my thoughts on Fury, but that's for a different video, different time. For now, thank you guys so much for watching part 1 of my 20 favorite movies of 2014. I appreciate it. I hope you like my choices so far. Stay tuned for part 2 and subscribe to the Film Feast. Like this video, do me a favor and support me a little bit. I appreciate it so much. Thanks for watching.